Peace was good. Welcome to an installment of my CD collection. This is part 13, and it's been a couple of days. Just been busy with work and stuff like that. It's gonna be like a short video. The albums I have are five CDs that I have in my hand. They were part of the shelf collection that I had in my other videos. These are just jazz CDs. I thought I'd just share these with you guys. Alright. We got the Getz and Gilberto album, released in 1964 by Stan Getz and João Gilberto, released in 1964. Very dope album. This is definitely a classic album in jazz history. A lot of jazz fans would know about this album. This is the album that actually introduced bossa nova to the United States. Because bossa nova, is known for it's very popular, and it originated in Brazil. You know what I mean? Stan Getz, he's a saxophonist. I think he's a saxophonist and stuff like that. Very solid. I really like this album a lot. I'm not the biggest bossa nova fan, but it is an acquired taste in my opinion. I'm more into the jazz fusion, like the dark electric jazz, like Miles Davis' Bitches Brew, shit like that, Weather Report, shit like that. That's what I'm into more. As well as stuff like Soft Machine and stuff like that. But anyways, getting back to this album, very solid. It's how you could play when you go to like a Brazilian restaurant, to like one of those churrascarias where they they eat a lot of meat and stuff like that. You play this in the background, it definitely suits the moment at that time. Or you taking your girl out to like dinner or whatever, you play this in the car. I mean, can never go wrong. It's timeless music. It doesn't sound like from the 60s. It sounds like something, if you go to like an expensive restaurant, like a Brazilian restaurant, because those restaurants are very expensive, they charge maybe $60 per head depending on the restaurant. Even more, it depends. But very solid, highly recommended if you like bossa nova music. There's a couple of people that sampled off this album, but I'm not gonna dry snitch, you know what I mean? So, but this is Getz and Gilberto with by Stan Getz and João Gilberto, released in 1964. Pick it up. Then we got this album right here, the Mahavishnu Orchestra, The Inner Mountain Flame, released in 1971, or I think 1970. I believe it was 1970 or 71. I'm gonna say 71 just to be safe. Very solid album. This is a prime example of what jazz fusion should be. It pretty much is the prime example of it. When you have different genres mixing together to make a fusion. You have jazz and you have psychedelic rock mixing together, and you have this album. The Mahavishnu Orchestra with John McLaughlin. For those who know who John McLaughlin is, he is known for his affiliation with Miles Davis. He was part of the whole Bitches Brew era. He was part of that whole that whole movement that Miles Davis had going on. He was part of that group. Very solid. Like I said, if you're into stuff like what was a good comparison? If you like stuff like Weather Report or Return to Forever, Chick Corea's group, then you'll definitely enjoy this album. There's a song called You Know. A lot of MCs back in the 90s has used that sample. I'm not gonna name names who used it. You guys go look it up. But yeah, it's a very solid album. It's an album that I could play. You could play it in a road trip or something like that. You by yourself, or you with your boys or some shit. You guys about to go to the beach or whatever. You just having a nostalgic moment. This is an album to play. Definitely dope. Or if you're having a Buddha session. I don't smoke, but if you play this album in the background, it definitely fits that moment, if you know what I mean. But this is The Inner Mountain Flame by the Mahavishnu Orchestra with John McLaughlin, released in 1971. Go pick it up. Classic album, by the way. Then we got The Shape of Jazz to Come by Ornette Coleman. This was released in 1959. A very good album. Ornette Coleman, you know, I believe he plays the alto sax. If you're into, you know, they say like he's one of the innovators of free jazz or avant-garde jazz. That's actually one of my favorite styles of jazz and stuff like that, because free jazz is like more like experimental. You know, something like Sun Ra, you know, cats like that. You know what I mean? Miles Davis, you know, Tony Williams, you know, shit like that. Very good album. Like I said, I didn't know who Ornette Coleman was until the coworker that I knew from back in the day, who passed away unfortunately, who gave me these CDs. You know, he put me on to some of these artists. Like, I didn't know about Ornette Coleman, or I didn't know about Stan Getz and João Gilberto, but I did know about Miles Davis and McLaughlin. But yeah, it's a good album. I really like this album. This album is actually, like I said, like one of the Ornette Coleman. He's like one of the innovators of free jazz. Definitely one of his biggest popular albums, like one of his most known albums in his discography. A lot of people say this is his best album or one of his best albums. Yeah, it's a very solid album, man. Like, me personally, like I said, I love jazz, but my favorite era of jazz would have to be maybe like early 60s to like the mid 70s, because by like 76, 77, jazz, you know, because the jazz fusion movement was going in still, but you know, they started using a lot more drums, a lot of more disco influenced drums and stuff like that, and I just wasn't feeling that shit, you know what I mean? It just wasn't my taste, you know what I mean? But I would say maybe like early 60s to mid 70s is like my favorite era of jazz. But even though this was made in 1959, it's a very good album. I highly recommend checking this album out. Ornette Coleman, The Shape of Jazz to Come, released in 1959. Like I said, this album is an important piece in jazz music. Like I said, it kind of started that whole free jazz movement that went on from the early 60s and shit like that. Very dope. Recommended. Then we got Miles Davis in a Silent Way, released in 1969. Miles Davis, he's definitely one of my favorite jazz artists, man. He's a fucking beast. You guys know he's known for the trumpet and stuff like that. With this album, when it first came out, it caused a lot of controversy in the jazz world, because I hate to say it, but a lot of jazz artists at that time, like a lot of jazz purists, they kind of had like a real narcissistic, elitist way of thinking. Like, you know, jazz is this, it shouldn't be touched by anyone, you know what I mean? But Miles Davis, you know, being the person who he is, wasn't always afraid to experiment, you know what I mean? So this album right here was kind of like one of the first albums to do the whole jazz fusion, if not the first, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. I'm not too knowledgeable on that, but based on what I know, from what I understand, this album was actually the beginning of his whole electronic period, where, like I say, he started collaborating with rock artists. You know, he started using more you know, more guitars in his music, synthesizers, you know, electric pianos and shit like that, because that was unheard of in jazz, you know, because a lot of people know jazz for like the trumpets, the jazz guitar, and the bass, the cello and shit like that. But for Miles Davis to do that, it was definitely innovative, very original for his time and stuff like that. A lot of people was looking at Miles Davis like he was fucking crazy. Like, what the fuck are you doing, B? Like, you know, what are you doing? This is not jazz. This is fucking noise. But then, years later, like 40-something years later, this album is a fucking iconic album, you know, in the jazz world, you know. It's looked down upon one of his best albums, you know. This is definitely one of my favorite albums. It's very dark. very moody. Definitely has like that night vibe feel to the album. A lot of artists sampled from this album, especially in the '90s. Yeah, this is a good album. Rest in peace, Miles Davis. By the way, this is, I believe, this was released after. Yeah, this was released after Nefertiti, Kilimanjaro, and albums like that. Very dope album. I need to get this on vinyl. Very good album. Definitely, you like albums like, you know, Bitches Brew, shit like On the Corner, you know, shit like that, then you'll definitely enjoy this album. Like I said, very dark, very moody. This is Miles Davis at his prime, you know what I mean, in my opinion. Like, you know, even though he was always in his prime, but at his best, in my opinion, when he was doing the whole jazz fusion and shit like that. Only have like 2 albums of his on vinyl. I'm trying to get more on vinyl, but his shit is very expensive on vinyl. It's actually cheaper to buy it on CD, but if I could get my hands on some Miles Davis albums on vinyl for the cheap, I would definitely be picking them shits up. But this is In a Silent Way, released in 1969. Go pick it up. If you're a hip hop head or anybody, you should definitely own that album. Then last album that I'm show you guys is The Best of Eric Dolphy. This is released. This is the best of. So this was released in 2004. Very dope. I really like Eric Dolphy. Tribe Called Quest has sampled his stuff. If you like people like you know, Freddie Hubbard, Ron Carter, you know, people like that, then you'll definitely enjoy Eric Dolphy's music. Very solid. He does the alto sax and stuff like that. It definitely has like a bluesy type of vibe to it, but it's so jazz, but it has like a blues feel to it. Yeah, very dope. And on Green Dolphin Street, I mean, that's like one of his that's even one of his biggest songs in his whole discography. I believe Tribe sampled that, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. Oop, sample snitch, sorry guys, but yeah, very dope. Highly recommended. And that's it. Stay tuned for part 14. I'll show you a preview. This is a CD case that I first started collecting. As you can see, it's mad dusty. It's like color faded. This is when I started my CD collection in 2000. As you can see, I got mad albums here. I no longer have the cases for these albums. Some of them I do. Some of them I don't. So I'll just show you guys the booklet. So stay tuned for that. Peace.